Welcome to GP Reeves' deep dive into our Servo AA dispensers. We offer both servo and pneumatic AA dispensers. Generally speaking, the servos could have coupled or uncoupled dispense rods. In this video, everything will be demonstrated on a coupled Servo AA designed for adhesives, but we'll focus on issues that affect all types of Servo AAs. We'll also touch on unique issues for materials with curing properties later in the video. For information on our pneumatic AA, check the description below for the link or search our YouTube channel. The first thing that you should check is that there is air going to the dispense system and power going to the control panel. If your HMI screen is lit up, you have power. You also need to confirm that your servo is connected to the PLC. Take a look at the top of the dispenser. There's an LED light that will either be green, red, or yellow. If it's green, it's connected and communicating with the PLC. If it's red, it's disconnected or there's an error. And if it's yellow, it's still initializing and will change to either green or red. Next, you'll want to confirm that you have proper air and material pressure. Supply pressure should range from 60 to 120 psi. And for our regulated pressure, we'll set it to 70 psi, but 60 works just as well. Typically, you'll want to be between 200 and 2000 psi of material inlet pressure, but that will depend on the system and the material. For example, thinner materials require less pressure. Even with proper pressure, the flow can still be obstructed by clogs. Material and debris can destroy valves or seals, so it's important to inspect the filter regularly and replace the internal elements when it's necessary. Next, just do a general visual inspection. Start by checking the dispense rod for any scoring or buildup of material on the rod. Buildup of material is likely because of seals which can wear out over time. Luckily, we have repair kits available that you can buy so that you can have all the seals you'll ever need. If you're running a system with grease or oil, a leaky seal will not cause damage immediately, but it should be replaced at a convenient time within a few weeks. If, however, your system is dispensing materials with curing properties, you'll want to take extra care that you replace those seals right away at any sign of leakage or failure to prevent any damage to the rest of the system. If you're having issues such as inaccurate dispensing, fill fault, purge timeout, or repeated compression test failures, there might be an issue with one of the valves on the chamber of your dispenser. Let's go over a valve isolation procedure to help you identify if any are causing problems. A stuck open valve might cause failed compression tests or post-dispense oozing. For verification, isolate and inspect each valve. It's best to observe flow directly at the outlets when it's possible, especially if there are long lines to the nozzle outlets or the purge container. If there are DVs at the end of the dispense line, they should be temporarily removed so they do not affect the results of this test. In order to identify a faulty valve, there are a few steps to follow. First, make sure that you have supply pressure coming to the fill valve. The basic idea here is that if an outlet, purge or dispense, is open at the same time as the inlet, fill valve, material will flow right through the chamber. In manual mode, open only the fill valve. At this point, if material comes out one of the other ports, then the valve is not properly closing, and it may be easy to identify. Next, we need to confirm that the purge valve opens as it should. Leaving the fill valve on, briefly turn the purge valve on and off, and make sure the flow starts and stops from the purge port. You can check the dispense using the same process. Leaving the fill valve open, briefly activate the dispense valve and confirm that material flow starts and stops properly at that port, and then repeat if you have multiple dispense ports on the unit. To confirm the fill valve operation, turn off all the valves including the fill valve. Open the purge valve. If material flows, then the fill valve is stuck open. If there is no flow, then briefly activate the fill valve to make sure it opens and closes properly. Material should flow through the purge port while the fill valve is on. If the fill valve does not open, it will prevent you from running this isolation procedure. Verify there's air pressure to the fill valve when the solenoid is turned on. If the valve has 60 psi of air and will not open, it needs to be replaced. If you're experiencing slow fill, it could be because of the following reasons. Check your system pump and make sure that the pump is on and enabled. If your pump has a solenoid valve on top, it is only enabled when the system calls for it. So go ahead and hit the system fill on the screen and check to see if the solenoid light turns on. If it doesn't, ensure the solenoid valve has power. This allows air pressure to the pump. You also want to make sure that there is adequate supply of material. The ram lever is in the down position and the pump and ram regulators are set appropriately. There may also be an issue with material supply pressure and the system fill rate if you have a dispenser with a coupled rod. If the system fill rate is set too fast, the rod will pull back faster than the material can refill, creating a void in the chamber. This creates a low pressure state, which will cause a fault. This fill pressure fault will be triggered by this fill pressure setting on the dispenser screen. The fill pressure setting acts as a safeguard to make sure that we don't go below 0 psi on the fill. If you have an uncoupled rod, you may notice the servo and the dispenser rod split and the dispense rod moves slower than the servo. If the dispense rod moves slower than programmed, you'll get a fault. If the issue persists, check for clogged lines or cured material. On the other hand, if you are having inconsistent dispense amounts while using multiple shots per refill, it could be due to varying pressure in the dispense chamber. Each dispense application requires a certain amount of pressure to move material. If the second dispense starts at a lower pressure, it can take a moment to repressurize the lines to the nozzle and could result in a smaller shot. Conversely, if the next shot starts with very high pressure in the chamber, it may dispense more quickly and result in a heavier dispense. This can be minimized by setting the pre-pressure value to roughly equal the pressure that is seen during a good dispense cycle. If you watch the overview screen during a dispense, you can observe the chamber pressure during the cycle, and then set pre-pressure to roughly match this value. The system is then able to pressurize after each refill sequence so that the first shot is closer to the target. If you're getting a retry count exceeded fault, it means the dispenser has failed the compression test more than the specified amount on the compression settings screen. It's possible you have an excess amount of air in your material. If you recently performed a container change to reconnect hoses, you could give it a few more tries to purge the air. It's also possible that your valve is stuck open, which will allow material to exit the dispenser chamber during the compression test, causing it to fail. If your system persistently fails the compression test, make sure your compression tolerance is appropriate for the material. Then, check your recent test results against the set tolerance. If the test results are consistent but the tolerance is too low, it will continue to fail. Then you're going to want to recalibrate the tolerance to better align with your material's compression. If the servo rod fails to extend during the dispense process, initiate a manual purge test via the system's manual screen. Activate the purge valve and jog the servo forward. While doing so, visually confirm the rod's movement. If the rod seems functional, release the jog button, close the purge valve, and select System Fill to refill the system. Once it's refilled, revert the system back to auto mode and you're ready to go. But if that didn't work, check for servo faults. Or if you have material that cures, make sure it hasn't set up, causing the rod to get stuck. If your system is designed for materials that have curing properties, there are features we've integrated to help protect the longevity of your material and the system itself. These include the solvent cup. The solvent cup keeps the dispense rod lubricated and unobstructed from material. It also creates a vapor barrier, preventing ambient air from entering the dispense chamber. Regularly inspect your solvent cup to make sure it's always filled and there's not material building up. Definitely don't let your system run dry if there's a solvent cup equipped with your system. It is also equipped with high-flow, double-acting ACE valves that permit active opening and closing, assisting in shearing off any cured material which could disrupt the system's flow. There are also some unique issues that can arise with Adhesives systems. Here are some to consider. If your system experiences flow limitations, there's a possibility that material has cured up inside the lines or fittings. In this situation, line or fitting replacement is the way to go. So if you have to perform any maintenance for an extended period of time, say you have to replace anything, you're going to want to go into manual mode and hit System Purge. This will drive the rod down into the dispense chamber and it will reduce the surface area of the rod that is exposed to moisture in the air. You also want to make sure that there is no material exposed to the air by placing caps with grease on the outlet ports or inlet ports to ensure that moisture can't enter into the chamber during maintenance. And to get back out of that, you can just hit System Fill, and when it's done filling, you can set the system back into auto mode. Okay, that should cover some of the most common issues that people may run into, but if you have any other questions or you're unable to solve the issue that you're facing, feel free to reach out to our service team at any time, or feel free to visit our website.